Welcome to our next installment of Illuminating Conversations. And I'm so pleased to have Cassie Stratford here with us today. She's the incoming president of Global Gaming Women. So we're really happy to have her. She's also the vice president of legal affairs and assistant general counsel at Boyd Gaming Group. So glad to have you, Cassie. Welcome.
Hi, James. Thanks so much for having me today. Appreciate it.
Tell me a little bit about that, and what did you do as you're just a newly minted lawyer out of law school?
Yeah, so as most lawyers know, you come out of law school thinking, all right, I just got this fantastic education, and you quickly find out you know almost nothing about actually practicing law.
Right.
So it was a lot of just sort of raising my hand to do whatever work was available. I was at a firm in Las Vegas called Snell and Wilmer. I was in the litigation practice group when I first got out of law school and just trying to soak up as much information as I could. I was working with some fantastic lawyers there and learned a lot. And I think sort of built some foundational principles of that are still really big, important part of my career, which is raise your hand to get the opportunity to try to do the work that you find interesting, even if you feel like you know nothing about it, because that's the only way you learn.
How did you wind up at Boyd?
So I actually love telling this story because I think it's, again, sort of what has become really foundational in my career. Somebody I knew in town that actually worked in-house at another casino company said, hey, I heard Boyd is hiring. You might really like in-house work. I know you've talked about being interested in sort of the business side of law, and sent over sort of the job description and said, this is kind of what they're looking for. And it was not me at all. I mean, they were looking for a lawyer that did contracts. They were looking for a lawyer that was a little fresher out of law school. They were looking for a lawyer that had in-house experience. I checked none of those boxes. But I thought, that company has a great reputation in town. I'm interested in exploring whether that's sort of a right next step for me. And why not throw your hat in the ring? Because you never know if you don't try. So I went on a couple interviews and, 10 years later, I'm still at Boyd. Yeah.
And so when you arrive at Boyd, what were some of the first kinds of things you did?
I started as an associate level lawyer doing sort of basic commercial contracts, anything from, small kiosk deals in properties or showroom agreements, basically any kind of overflow contract work that needed to be done was sort of the primary focus of my role originally. But I sort of wanted to learn as much as I could about the business because I felt that it would help me provide better service to the internal clients. So there would be, hallway discussions, and I would hear about a meeting that had to do with regulatory compliance or a new piece of litigation that we were dealing with. Or the first year I was here, Boyd Gaming was selling the piece of property that the Echelon development, the old Stardust site that's now Resorts World. So I said, can I sit in on some of these meetings or some of these calls? And I was fortunate enough to have really supportive professionals around me that said, absolutely. And I really had nothing of value to offer, but I was sort of, I don't know where I got my guts from to say, hey, can I sit in on these meetings? And I would try to figure out, is there a way I can add value? I'll take notes or I'll follow up on, whatever item I could. And that led me to be able to get more and more involved.
I know you have a certain perspective on, you can be a lawyer for a Boyd Gaming, which is a business enterprise, and you go into every meeting, and lawyers I'm guilty as charged as a lawyer. I run a business too. We always like to tell the client everything that could go wrong, right? How do you balance risk reward, and what have you learned from the litigation days where you're defending somebody to today where you're actually a lawyer, but Boyd is trying to get business done?
Right.
How do you approach risk reward today versus maybe before?
I think that what was really appealing to me about coming in-house as an internal lawyer was sort of the business angle. And in the litigation scenario, particularly as an external lawyer, you're just stuck with the facts, right? You can't help manage risk on the front end. But when I first came in-house, it was like you look at all you see is risk, right? Because you're used to litigating that. And then that is why I felt so strongly about trying to learn the business, right? Because you've got to understand the business need. And for me, it really took me trying to interact with as many folks outside of legal as possible to understand the operations and the challenges that those teams face and what they need to accomplish. Because if you are the lawyer that just identifies risk and says no all the time, nobody's going to work with you because you can't help, you're going to be chicken little, sky's always falling. And then nobody comes to you and you can't provide any service. So for me, it's sort of, I think what becomes most important for lawyers to remember is listen to the business needs and stop and listen before you come up with a no, or your brain automatically starts cataloging all the things that could go wrong.
Right.
And sort of take off your lawyer hat for a moment, put on your business person hat, and really carefully think about the balance, because there's going to be times when you have to say no. Or I don't think that the risk is worth the reward.
Right.
But that can't be every time, or nobody's going to listen to you. So you have to sort of use the no cautiously, or business just won't get done.
When you went into that room, those early days at Boyd, and were there many women around you? Was it mostly men in the room? What was that makeup, and what did that feel like as being a female lawyer in gaming, 7, 8, 9 years ago?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I think is interesting about the gaming industry. I mean, you would see some industry giants, trailblazers, big names, and sort of sit in awe of these people when you looked around the industry, but they were industry giants. They were trailblazers. There was only sort of a handful of them. Now, you look around and you see more and more of them. And I think what's becoming so fantastic is it's less unique to look around a room and see a lot of female faces, and more generally speaking, just a lot more diversity in the broader sense, not just gender diversity, but all kinds of diversity. And I think that's really impactful to be able to look around the room and see all different kinds of people with different ideas and different perspective to add.
When you were sort of on this journey, did you have mentors, male mentors, female mentors?
There have been so many people. And that's what is also sort of really been fun about this industry, because I've found that people are really willing to help you if you are willing to ask. I mean, what I tell sort of young lawyers, or just people in the industry in general, is, ask someone if they have a few minutes to walk over and grab a cup of coffee. And most people will make time for you if you ask them. They might not think to, reach out proactively, but I have yet to find somebody who I've sort of said, gosh, I want to pick their brain a little bit. And if you ask them, do you have time for coffee or lunch or breakfast or whatever it is, people are really willing to help you. And that's not gender specific either. And I've done the same thing outside the legal department, because I found that, I can't just look for only lawyer mentors. I've got to look for mentors that are operations folks,
Right.
and folks on the finance side and folks on the marketing side. So it's really been a diverse group.
How long have you been involved, been on the board or whatnot, and what attracted you to GGW?
The first GGW event I went to was an event that Patty started called Kick Up Your Heels. And that's a fundraiser that was sort of her brainchild originally. And it raised funds for this organization that I knew was about women in gaming. And a friend of mine that at the time worked, I believe, at Scientific Games said, hey, there's this event. It's a great organization. You should come. So that was my first exposure. And what I found so appealing about the organization and sort of sparked my further interest was you were in this room of people that were big names in the gaming industry, and it was full of women. But additionally, you had some men there, which I thought was so cool because you saw that there were successful males in this industry that were supportive of the cause. And that is so meaningful to see that, you know, people in this industry are willing to sort of reach back and help others move forward as well.
You're now the new president. What is your intentions over the next couple of years? You know, what are you trying to get accomplished? What are you trying to move forward?
Now I'm coming in a position where this organization is very well funded. It's a recognized, respected brand in the industry. And for me, I think the goal will be to expand our reach because we've got this respected foundation now. And there's established education courses, there's online masterclass and Trailblazers, which is a series where women are interviewed, and there's podcasts. And I think now the idea is our industry is expanding in huge ways, right? I mean, it's not the traditional just land-based casino operators and vendors anymore.
I was going to ask you, it's larger than Las Vegas.
Yes.
It should be a global organization, and where it's. I know later this month you're having an education a session, and I know that we're sending some of those in, and some of our people into those classes. So you're really looking to expand this in a global way, right? Women from all over the world joining this organization.
That's right. We've got some new board members. Everybody's not based in Las Vegas anymore. So we are really trying to figure out ways to sort of have more online offerings and reach more sort of what I'll call the non-traditional women in the industry that might work for vendors or technology providers, because those are industries that are sort of key to gaming functioning overall. And there's women that need this same type of mentorship and professional development across the board. So I think my goal is really just expanding the reach and making sure that any sort of woman in our industry that's interested in this kind of professional development has it accessible, whether or not they're in Las Vegas or anywhere in the world.
How do you guys work together so that the organization continues to move forward in this all volunteer way?
Yeah, so that's one of the sort of unexpected, really important lessons I've learned from this organization. I used to think that it was a sign of weakness. If you said, oh my gosh, I'm too busy, and there's this, there's so many balls in the air, there's one that I'm not sure I can hold up at the moment. And what I saw and learned through GGW is, we're this organization of really busy women, board, volunteers, what have you. And what I started to observe was somebody would say, gosh, I have this huge thing going on at work, or really important issue with my family that I need to focus on. And I watched people sort of step up to the plate and help them out and support them. So it really sort of helps women feel comfortable and, to say, now is a time when I'm really busy, I'll be back and I'll be helpful. And watching that was really, really just an unexpected lesson for me professionally in volunteer organizations and also just in life. And it taught me a lot about this sort of ongoing debate for, I think it used to be a women issue, but I think it's a professional person issue, which is right. How do you have it all, right? How do you feel successful at work and in your personal life? And I think the idea is that maybe doesn't always happen, but there's seasons of that where you feel like, all right, now I need a little help. And it's okay to ask for that. And I think there's strength in that.
What do you wish that everyone knew about GGW? What do you wish that people knew that they might not already know, or it might be a misconception that they think they know something that's not true?
Yeah, so I think that there used to be this conception that GGW was just this organization that had sort of networking events and provided opportunities for women to network where they, didn't have those opportunities before. It is so much more than that today. Absolutely, there's networking, and absolutely that is crucial to career development. But there are so many educational opportunities. There's in-person conferences. There are webinars, there's online content that's going to be rolled out within the next year. And It's not just around G2E either, it's year round. So I encourage people to log on to the website,
check it out
through member clicks and check it out, because there's a lot more offerings than people might realize.
There's a lot more value than
Yeah.
one might see in the future. I want to just quickly talk a little bit about you, because most people won't know this. And not only are you a busy person now, president of GGW, not only are you at Boyd and doing all those things that, assistant general counsels do, but you also give back, which really struck me. You do two things that are just fabulous. One, I know that you go back and you're an adjunct professor at UNLV Law School, and you teach a class giving back to your alma mater. Just briefly tell us, what do you teach and why do you do it?
So I teach a legal writing class called transactional drafting. And it's been so much fun for me to do that, because it's a good reminder of sort of where you're at in your career. When you first start out, you kind of know nothing and are so excited about everything. And a reminder of the basics, and just to sort of appreciate each phase of where you're at.
I also know about you that you're in the Ask a Lawyer program through the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada. And so you perform pro bono work, people call in apparently.
So the Ask a Lawyer program is something that I encourage all my sort of friends that are in-house lawyers. Like, this is a really straightforward way for us to be able to give back. And you sign up for an afternoon, and they're 15-minute sessions. And it's just somebody who maybe doesn't need a lawyer for a whole piece of litigation, but has an issue with a landlord, or has an issue with a, auto repair shop that ripped them off, or
Right.
It's across the board. And
people come in for 15 minutes and they ask you a question, you help them out, and off they go.
Exactly. And it's so rewarding. And it's a good reminder of some of the really basic problems that when we're tied up in sort of all of the craziness of work and being busy and on the go, and sort of our everyday problems, a reminder of the very basic essential human needs that we don't have to worry about from a day.
It makes you actually grateful for what you have.
Yeah, it sure does.
What do you think has changed most in the last 10 years for women in the gaming industry?
I think about when I first came to the company, and I think about today, and I see so many more female faces in leadership positions in companies in our industry than I did even 10 years ago when I first sort of formally joined the industry. And that just is such a testament to GGW and its supporters. And again, I reiterate that that's males and females.
Right.
There would not be more female faces in these leadership meetings if males weren't supportive of it. So I think it's really important not to lose sight of that it's all supporters. It's not just women supporting women, which is huge, but it's the fact that there's really important males in leadership roles that are also supportive of this. And I see that in my company and across the industry.
And what do you think is going to happen in the next 10 years? Is more of the same, or bigger, or what are you thinking?
So our industry is doing some really, really interesting things. And my hope is that in 10 years, you aren't even talking about this issue anymore, that there's fewer females in leadership roles, because it becomes that it's such a commonplace that you see the mix that we don't have to think about this issue in the same way. And there might be sort of unique opportunities, but I hope that this is an issue that really continues to fade and is no longer something we have to.
I think that's a great response. What is something most people don't know about you that you wish they did?
I don't know if I would say I wish they did know it, but I am a big fan. I have a very silly side and I love karaoke, and I have a terrible voice, so nobody needs to hear it.
Right. What do you do for fun when you're not doing all these things that we just discussed?
So I'm big into swimming. Yeah. So I grew up a swimmer, and I love my swim groups with different people that do triathlons and whatever, and it's social and gets me outside, and that's I enjoy that a lot.
If you had to talk to a 4-year-old Cassie or a 4-year-old person who wanted to be your protege, what would you say to them?
I would say don't worry so much about having a precise plan, because life kind of takes you in funny directions, and keep an eye on your goals, but you don't have to worry about having a perfectly laid plan, because life will change that plan regardless.
Great answer. Thank you, Cassie. We've been speaking today with Cassie Stratford on Illuminating Conversations. You've been a great guest, incoming president of GGW, and everybody kick up your heels and support the GGW, because it's doing great things. Thanks so much, Cassie, for coming by today.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it.